All right, guys, welcome back to Burt's Basics. Today we're doing strand number 9. We're jumping into the blood. So today's videos are going to be a little bit shorter, I hope, because I'm going to try to do a video for each standard, or which is number 1 is just the components of blood. So here's what we're supposed to be, learning today. Identified the key components of blood. So let's go to this picture right here first. Woo! Okay. I love when we're in class and I tell kids, if you were going to give plasma, how do they do it? Oh, by the way, this next picture has a needle in it, so if you don't like needles, look away. Okay, and I always ask kids, well, what do they do? How do they get plasma out? And if we have this discussion in class sometime, it's kind of fun because they take your blood out, they run it through a machine called a centrifuge, and it separates your products by weight. This picture is going to be on every exam for the rest of your career. So what happens is they separate it by weight, and the heaviest elements sink towards the bottom, which if we look, our heaviest elements are one thing called erythrocytes. So let's go ahead and start doing some med term on these words right here. I know some of you already know this. People don't like this word because they can't say it. Okay, erythro means red. So a erythrocyte is literally a red blood cell. So you can see that 45% of your blood volume are erythrocytes. And we're going to talk about diseases when you have too little red and too many red. Okay, red gets quite a big video because he's kind of, he's kind of a big deal. So then after we separate them, those are the heaviest because they contain iron. Okay, then we get to the middle one. Now this one confuses people because there's so few. You see this little spot right here? That's where 2 more cells are. So then we get our leukocytes. So let's talk about those guys. Let's go ahead and write them up here. Leuko is another word you need to know. Leuko is the med term for white. Okay, so when you ever hear leuko anything, it's referring to your white blood cells. So people are always surprised how few we have of those. But the reason why I have so few is because they have a nucleus, which means they can replicate upon command. So they're pretty good. Now platelets. I love platelets as well, but I'm never going to call them platelets. So you guys are going to have to learn their real names. And we're going to call them thrombocytes. Okay, so now let's go ahead and do thrombo. Thrombo is not a color. Okay, thrombo is more of a process. Thrombo means to clot. So right away, you kind of know what every one of their functions are. Leuko is our white blood cells. When I say leukocytes or white blood cells, everyone knows that's going to be immunity, protection, fight infection. When I say thrombocytes, you should now say clotting. That's going to help us clot when we have damaged blood vessels. So erythro, I guess, is your only real question. And the reason why erythro is important because of oxygen carrying, which we'll talk about later. But first, I want to start with all this yellow liquid on the top. Okay, I want to start with all this guy. This right here is your plasma. Now remember, if you guys remember from tissues back in Map A, which I know is a long time ago, you learned that connective tissues have cells and a matrix. Well, you just learned the cells, erythro, leuko, and thrombo, but plasma is the matrix. And plasma is the liquid portion of the blood. And don't get me wrong, there are some really cool things going on in plasma that we're going to talk about. They have free-floating protein sticks that we call antibodies. Okay? Antibodies play a huge role in our defense system. They also have things called clotting factors, which are going to help us clot. They have ions, which are essential for basic day-to-day functions. So your plasma actually has a lot of cool things in it, but it's generally the liquid portion of your blood. So just know that you're going to have this picture and you're going to have to kind of divide it out and be able to write it and understand what it is. Now, AP picture. Not that one. This one. Okay. We won't talk about this a ton in MAP, but in Weber, oh man, we are going to talk about this a ton. This is called a pluripotent stem cell. Okay. Up here at the top, pluripotent stem cell. Now remember, if we're talking about an embryonic stem cell, an embryonic stem cell can become anything in the world it wants to be. It can become bone, it can become heart, it can become kidney, it can become liver. This is not an embryonic stem cell. This is a pluripotent stem cell that's found in your bone marrow. And what he can become is anything underneath him. So let's follow his pathway for a second. So based on the right chemicals and the right pathways, right, that's where we get these forming units over here, he can become a red blood cell or a erythrocyte. Erythrocytes are made in the red bone marrow, okay? Under certain chemicals, he can become all these guys. Now, we're going to have a video specifically designed for all these guys. These guys are all my different forms of my white blood cells, or my leukocytes. All leukocytes are made in the red bone marrow. Now, they can mature in lots of other places, but they're made in the red bone marrow. And the whole reason I'm showing you a picture is this. He can also form this cool cell which none of you have ever heard of before. It's called a megakaryocyte. Now, mega is huge. Karyo is nucleus. So this makes this huge nucleated cell. But then look what happens to this huge nucleated cell. He starts to fracture. Chomp, 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 chomp. And he breaks into these fragments. And those fragments are called thrombocytes. All platelets are made in the bone marrow. Now, on the test, you're going to see this word a lot, and I need you to see it so you don't freak out when you see it. The test is going to say which formed element. Now, if you understand this, I really can't call this a thrombocyte because it's not really a cell. It's a piece or a fragment of a cell. So in the test, we're going to say what formed element, And the reason that is, and your choices will be red, white, and platelet, which we're going to switch to erythro, leuko, and thrombo. But those are going to be your choices because platelets really are not a cell. They're a piece of a cell. So when you guys see formed element, don't panic about that. Just think cell. Okay, what cell does this? What cell does that? And that's what we're going to do in this unit. We're going to talk about each one of these. So now our next videos are going to be all about red blood cells. What do they look like? Why do we need them? What happens if I have too many? What happens if I have too few? Stuff like that. Then we're going to talk about this guy. When I get a broken blood vessel, man, I got to figure out how to fix it. So we got to talk about clotting and the process called hemostasis. Whole video about him as well. Then this guy, you're going to feel a little left out. In blood, we don't talk about these 5 very much, or these 6, because these are both lymphocytes, okay? We don't talk about these guys very much because these guys get their own system. When we talk about the lymphatic system, oh man, we're going to talk about these guys way more in detail. So these guys, you're going to get an introduction to white blood cells in this unit, but most of it, we're going to focus on red and platelets with a hint of white blood cells. Hey guys, thanks for watching Burt's Basics. Let's go ahead and get your quiz really quick. So, we probably should add this as well, okay? Hematology, that's what the unit that we're studying right now is hematology. So remember, ology is study of, and heme is blood. So if you're a vampire, your major is going to be hematology. That's what you're going to study, okay? So here's our questions. So go ahead and do me a favor. Maybe I have my questions. Oh, I think they're at the bottom. Whoop, there they are. So go ahead and answer these questions. The answers to these questions are coming up in just a second. And thanks for watching Burt's Basics, and I'll see you on the flip side. All right, there's your answers.